So our theme today is learning to unhurry, and we're exploring the idea of Sabbath. Jesus and his disciples are walking one day through a cornfield. There's nothing unusual about that, excepting that it is the Sabbath, the day of rest for the Jews, when no work is to be done. And some of the disciples are getting hungry. They pick some ears of corn to eat and are seen by Pharisees, some highly religious men, holier than thous of their day. And they ask Jesus, why are they doing what is unlawful on the Sabbath? You see, picking ears of corn is seen as breaking the rule that no work should be done on the Sabbath. And in response, Jesus tells the story of a time when David, that revered figure of Israel's past, and his companions were hungry. And they entered the house of God, and they took and they ate consecrated bread from the altar. And Jesus concludes, the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath. Well, some of us grew up at a time when we weren't allowed to do certain things on the Sabbath, our Sabbath, which for most of us is Sunday. No watching TV, no playing cards, no Sunday sport, no fun. It was permitted just about to go to essential shops, much like now really, but back then shops selling non-essential goods just weren't open on any Sunday. Just about all we could do on a Sunday was church on our day of rest. And how we did church. Morning service, afternoon Sunday school, evening service, sometimes Sunday sing-alongs after evening service, other times prayer meetings added into the mix. We would arrive home on a Sunday night, not so much rested as exhausted. Happy days. Did we, I wonder, buy into the notion of the Pharisees that we were made for the Sabbath? It was never meant to be that way, and Jesus reminds us of that. Sabbath was made for human beings, or perhaps putting it another way, he might have said, Sabbath was made for being human in the way that God intends. You see, Sabbath is a command, yes, but not a curse. Remember the Sabbath day, says God through Moses. It's meant to be a day we look forward to, not a day we look forward to getting through. And Sabbath is a gift that is given, not a debt to be paid. On the seventh day, God rested from all his work. Then God blessed the seventh day. It's a blessed day for blessing God, as we have done, I hope, this morning, and remembering who he is and who we are. And Sabbath is a day to be celebrated, not a burden to be carried. God blessed the seventh day and made it holy because on it he rested from the work of creating he had done. Sabbath is written into the fabric of creation. God rested. And how much more do we need rest? What does it mean then that Sabbath was made for human beings? Back in 1965, Mick Jagger sang, "I can't get no satisfaction." He tapped into the spirit of the age, and if you look into the lyrics some more, you'll realize he was largely talking about the advertising that created a desire in us that might be satisfied by buying the products advertised, only to find on buying that product that we are not satisfied and we want still more, still something else. I can't get no satisfaction. Around 1600 years earlier, Augustine, Bishop of Hippo, said to God, "You have created us for yourself, and our hearts are restless until they find their rest in you." We try and find satisfaction in all sorts of things, but it will only be found in God. And about 4 centuries earlier than that, Jesus said, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." He's still saying it to us today. And part of the answer is to practice Sabbath. Well, let's get the Sabbath versus Sunday thing out of the way, shall we? For Jews, Sabbath is, well, more or less a Saturday. Actually, really, it's from Friday evening to Saturday evening, which was regarded as the day at that time. And Sabbath really was quite revolutionary. See, most religions worship their God in a place, probably a temple as time went on. But God gave his people a day to worship him. Early in the Christian faith, Christians did worship on the Sabbath, but gradually that changed to the day of the Lord's resurrection, Sunday, the Lord's Day, as often we might call it. You can see both of those in the New Testament. For most of us, Sunday will be our Sabbath because it works. The most important thing, though, may not be the actual day, but that we take a day to rest with God. So having done that, let's get back to the question, why Sabbath? How can we practice Sabbath in a way that honors the command and receives Sabbath as a joyful gift from God? I want to think first of all about Sabbath as rest and worship. The word Sabbath or Shabbat really means stop. Stop working, stop worrying, stop wanting, stop doing what you normally do the rest of the week. There is a relentlessness, isn't there, to modern society, as there probably has been to every society that's ever been. But even now, in this time of lockdown, some of us will feel as if we're on a treadmill that someone else is controlling, more often than not at a speed which is too fast to be comfortable. Have you ever fallen off a treadmill? If you go to the gym and get on a treadmill, you're meant to attach a clip from the machine to yourself. It's got a little string on it, a little clip that you clip onto maybe your shorts or your shirt or something like that. So that if you stop moving and the treadmill doesn't, as you're pulled back by the treadmill, the clip tugs and stops the machine so that you don't go flying. Does anyone ever use that clip, I wonder? Not me, that's for sure. Sabbath is a day for us to stop. It's a day to get off the treadmill before we fall off. It's a day to let our souls catch up with our bodies. Another meaning of Shabbat is to delight. Ask yourself the question, what could I do for 24 hours that would fill my soul with joy, with delight? Well, we could worship. Worship is certainly part of the answer. And I really hope that worship with God's people is something that fills your soul with joy. I really hope that it fills your soul with joy to be here with us this morning. As we worship, we remember who we are and who God is. He is creator and we are his creation. God is love and we are loved by God. God is light and calls us out of darkness. God is life and gives us life through becoming one of us and giving his life on the cross. In worship, we refocus on God and prepare for the rest of the week by resting in God, resting with God. And then there's rest too. In the creation story of Genesis chapters 1 and 2, there are 3 things specifically that God blesses. God blesses the animal kingdom when he's made that. God blesses human beings when he's made us. And God blesses Sabbath. He says to animals and human beings, Be fruitful and increase in number. Fill the earth. And I wonder, might enjoying the rest of Sabbath increase our capacity to fill the world with life during the rest of the week? What might we do with Sabbath? What might be the things that perhaps, hopefully, you already are doing as you seek to fill your soul with joy and enjoy what God has given to us? Might Sabbath be a day for family? How we wish we could spend time with family at the moment. But thank God too for FaceTime and WhatsApp and the like, means by which we can see our loved ones and catch up with them on this day, on other days too. Sabbath can be a day to not do chores that could be done on another day, a day to rest from the mundane. Maybe Sabbath is and can be a day for walks with those whom you love. Again, a little bit restricted at the moment, but still a day for walks, for spending time, for finding joy. Yes, maybe a day to read your Bible and to pray and to delight in it. Because so often the rest of the week, there isn't time. We're busy with other stuff. Maybe a day to snuggle up with the one you love, and maybe even to make love with your spouse, as long as you can get the kids out of the way. A day to be creative with paintings or poetry or photography or whatever it is that gives you life. A day to celebrate life with the one who made it. Wonder if those things on worship and rest give you food for thought. I hope so. And maybe now is the time to reevaluate how we spend Sabbath, how we stop, how we honor the command of God, but also honor it in a way that he intended, the way that gives us life. And then I want to talk briefly about Sabbath as something a little bit different. Sabbath as resistance. Remember, the Sabbath is the fourth of the Ten Commandments. If you read it in its context, its original context in Exodus chapter 20, you'll find it is by far the longest of the commandments when you add in the explanation for it. Remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy, it begins. Don't work. Then all the stuff that we heard James read to us a little while ago. And it ends up by saying, for in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea, and all that is in them, but he rested on the 7th day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy. So that's in Exodus chapter 20. Then in Deuteronomy chapter 5 and verses 12 to 15, as Moses prepares Israel finally to enter the promised land after 40 years of waiting, he reiterates the commandments. Observe the Sabbath, he says. Now, let's do it, not just remember it, but do it, observe it. And then it's more or less the same until the final part of the reasoning for observing the Sabbath, where he says, remember that you were slaves in Egypt, and that the Lord your God brought you out of there with a mighty hand and an outstretched arm. Therefore, the Lord your God has commanded you to observe the Sabbath. Why remember that you were slaves and observe the Sabbath? Well, slaves don't get a Sabbath, do they? For slaves, it's working every day, perhaps all day, every day, at the behest of your overlords. Slaves are slaves to a regime, to the machinery of the state, to the economy, to the consumerism of society, to the spirit of the age. We are not slaves, or are we? Or are we? Might Sabbath for us be a day of resistance to the pressures to conform to the spirit of the age, a day for us to leave Egypt behind? We'll look next week more at how we might live more simply. But for now, let's think for a moment about how we might rest from the relentlessness of our time when it comes to Sabbath. Might we rest on the Sabbath from shopping, unless it really is essential? Some of us will remember the Keep Sunday Special campaign of about 20 years ago, as we tried to resist the wholesale opening up of shops on a Sunday. We'll also recall that it became impossible to resist the tide in the end. But might it be a small act of resistance not to shop for non-essential goods on a Sunday? Credit to the founder, the owner of the toy store, The Entertainer, who doesn't open the shop on a Sunday because of his Christian beliefs. The store actually seems to have done rather well despite that, or perhaps because of that, it has been blessed. Might we also abstain from online shopping? You know, that temptation we have to keep scrolling through different things all day, every day. Might Sunday be a day of resistance? Because after all, it's still there every other day of the week. Might it be that Sunday is a day when we abstain from the relentless urge to check our emails, Facebook posts, Instagram, TikTok, WhatsApp, and whatever other applications you have every 5 minutes of the day? I bet even now, during this time, some of you have checked your phone for the cricket score. I mentioned that last week, didn't I? And maybe other things. Perhaps put the phone away, put the other devices away. Have a day to stop from those things and start afresh with God. Perhaps Sabbath too can be a day to stop wasting time on things that don't satisfy in order to experience the one who does. We live, don't we, in a culture of more, and more ultimately will never satisfy. Is Sabbath a day for us deliberately to resist? And in resisting, finding that actually less is more, and that more is God himself. So Sabbath is a day for us to stop. It is a day to let the relentlessness of life be met by the restfulness that Jesus gives. We are not made to live without rest, nor without God. Our hearts are restless until they find their rest in him. So fight the Sabbath. Fight God. Fight our own souls. But find the Sabbath. Find God. Find ourselves.